Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. Thanks for joining us on this special broadcast on CNN News 18's YouTube channel. Um, Today, we are planning on discussing something that is very serious in nature. Although, unfortunately, the population, the larger section of population in this country, perhaps aren't quite aware of the danger that faces not just this country, perhaps the entire region of Southeast Asia at this point in time, and that's the impact of global warming and the climate change, the drastic climate change that's happening on our subcontinent, and we are experiencing these impacts of climate changes. um, Chennai has been receiving a deluge it hasn't received in the last 6 years. Some time back, it was the turn of the city of Mumbai, which practically went underwater because of the heavy rains. On the intervening night of 21st and 22nd September, it was Kolkata which received an average rainfall of about 200 millimeters on that particular day. Obviously, putting the entire city underwater, completely waterlogged the entire system of drainage, failing at that point in time. And these untimely rains, unseasonal rains that most of these big cities and its surrounding areas are receiving in India is now more or less commonplace. Bengal, which is in the east coast, Mumbai, which is in the west coast, have been experiencing regular cyclones. Some of them are very severe cyclones, bordering on becoming super cyclones on account of the cyclonic formations that are being formed over the Bay of Bengal as well as on the Arabian Sea, respectively, and causing massive damage to the coasts of Bengal, Odisha, down south, Andhra Pradesh, even Tamil Nadu, and on the west, in Mumbai, in Gujarat, and so on and so forth. So obviously, these are very, very serious challenges, and perhaps it's time now for the authorities to pull up their socks and act. A proposal, obviously, which is much easier said than done. So that is the reason why I am joined by two experts in this field. Professor Shugoto Hajra from the School of Oceanographic Studies in Jadavpur University, and Dr. Oromitro Anurag Danda, who is a climate change expert, I would say, and has been the program lead in climate change adaptation with the WWF, also a senior visiting fellow with the ORF, Energy and Climate Change Program. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. I'll come to Professor Hajra first. Professor Hajra, you've been working in a consistent manner over the last several decades now, I believe, over the situation that's engulfing the Sundarbans Islands. The Sundarbans has been one of the most ecologically sensitive zones, which is slowly, steadily now sinking in the sea, into the sea. The islands are getting washed out. They are getting they're getting washed away, causing serious damage to flora and fauna in that area, and disturbing the ecological balance in the region altogether. This drastic climate change, which is happening on account of the global warming impact, how serious is it for India, especially the east coast, given the fact that the IPCC study is now saying that Kolkata is likely to go under tidal water levels as soon as in the year 2030, which is less than a decade from now?
Yeah, it is pretty alarming, and we are anticipating that the things are changing very fast in this part of the East Coast because what IPCC or global community is concerned is with the absolute rise in sea level, which is merely a mathematical sea level of 3.14 millimeter or 3.26 millimeter. However, what we are observing or we are experiencing on our coast is a relative sea level rise.
Right.
That is the sea level rise which coupled with land subsidence. And as you have mentioned,
True.
East Coast, the most
True.
of our deltas of India are on the East Coast, not on the West Coast, because the
Correct.
rivers are flowing, draining into the Bay of Bengal. So, what happens that the delta can subside faster, say at the rate of maybe 3 millimeter per year, and you have a 3 millimeter per year rise of sea level that is coupled into a 6 millimeter rise, and that is actually impounding the coast and eroding the island. So I spent my
Mhm.
20 years of my service to prove that, well, Sundarban of India is much more vulnerable, and India is much more vulnerable to climate change than any other part of the world because of its complexities of different types of landform and different types of ocean interaction, because both of our bays are close at the north. So our water is much more, build-up of water is much more on our east coast and the northern coast, like the Sundarbans. So this is one part of climate change. But what you have started the program with, the deluge of Chennai or deluge of Calcutta or deluge of Mumbai, this is another phase of climate change. That is the rise of the extreme rainfall event in different parts of India, while we are getting less and less rainfall uh, at the sowing season. So we are one way facing a drought in my Purulia district, or say in
Mhm.
Saurashtra, maybe in or in Karnataka, parts of Karnataka, but we are getting flooded in the urban mega cities like say Mumbai or Chennai or Kolkata. So these are various phases of climate change and extremes that you are observing coupled with sea level. Uh, because you see that you cannot drain Calcutta's water, which has accumulated in a 200 millimeter rainfall, unless you can drain it to the Ganges. And the Ganges, if the tide rises at the time of high tide, you cannot drain it. So you're waterlogged for 12 hours. So
True.
that is the tragic situation, and that is the situation the planners and policymakers are to face now. Over to you.
So essentially, we have a dual impact. One, because of these coastal cities, Chennai, Mumbai, Kolkata, very close to the sea coast. One, obviously, is the impact of the unseasonal rains and huge quantities of rains that's happening on account of the low pressure areas that are being formed over the Bay of Bengal or the Arabian Sea, as the case may be. And that's causing these cities to go underwater, complete inundation. And at the same time, there is this rise in relative sea level, which is, of course, what you are stating is more serious than the actual sea level rise that is monitored by various agencies. So
Yeah.
obviously, it's a dual impact. And the impact states that cities like Kolkata could go underwater. Cities like Mumbai, Navi Mumbai could go underwater by 2030. Is that are we really endorsing the danger that we are actually facing at this point in time, or are these mere exaggerations, or maybe a bit of a apprehension, as the cases may be, Professor Hajra?
I think, okay. So, I mean, look, the Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, is being shifted now. The city is being shifted because of the high rate of subsidence. Is it a reality or not? COVID, which was never anticipated 5 years back, and so many people will die, so much of loss of employment will be there, so much of people have to move from one place to another, was unthinkable even after before 3 years, isn't it? So things are changing. We are approaching the tipping point, and things are changing very fast. Uh, Subsidence coupled with rise of sea level, uh, increasing frequency of high intensity cyclones and rainfall, high intensity rainfall, more than 100 meter. Everything was rising, but we are not taking into consideration, or none of our policymakers or planners have at any point of time taken this into cognizance that you need to vacate people from the low-lying areas. And where is your plan? Option one. Where is your fund for adaptation to climate change? You can go on doing COPs, but that is not going to solve problems like COVID. Because what we are doing is trying to protect it with vaccine, but there will be a new disease coming. So,
Right.
if you are trying to protect these with shelters, cyclone shelters, green belt, or whatever it is your hand, coastal embankments,
So they are
I think
merely
you will see
stopgap solutions. That's what
like
you're saying.
yeah. So what is the major concern is that though we are doing COP every year and trying to pledge funds, where the funds are going?
Correct.
Funds are going for forest. Funds are going for, say, maybe as Anurag may be elaborating,
Right.
as good for mitigation fund, climate mitigation, bringing down the carbon dioxide level. But if you bring down to the carbon dioxide level, even at the level of say 1990, you are not going to arrest the rise of sea level, because the sea has
True.
warmed up 700 meters there. You
True.
cannot just do away with the, I mean, immediate, you cannot see the immediate effect of your plan. So you need to plan for adaptation immediately.
Right.
It's like that you have to have more oxygen produced to supply oxygen to the COVID patients. So unless you plan for that, you're not going to save the people. You can win wars, but we are not going
True.
to save the people.
It's a good time perhaps to turn to Dr. Anurag Danda, who's been specializing in research and scholarship of climate change adaptation. Sir, I would ask you, I was going through one of these, another of these IPCC reports, which predicts that by the turn of the century, the rise in the average rise in temperature in Kolkata would be around 4.5 degrees Celsius. Now that's startling. I mean, for 4.4 and a half degrees Celsius by the end of the century means that this area would practically become unlivable. Uh, um, what is it that you are actually apprehending in terms of the adaptation measures that various agencies, including governments, the state and the center here in India, are taking up? Is it enough? Is it not enough? Too little? Too late? What is the situation on the ground?
Thank you. But before I respond to your question regarding temperature rise at the end of the century, I'm actually glad that you've picked up this topic. IPCC has been producing these reports for, I mean, this is the sixth round, and it has not had the impact amongst the general population the way it should have had. All of us talk economics. Most of us are not economists.
Mhm.
Simply because the economics affects us. Climate
True,
change affects all of us, and therefore
true.
adaptation to climate change uh, should affect all of us and should be a talking point for all of us. You referred to the timeline of 2030, which again I think the credit should go to Climate Central for the visualization tool that they've been putting out from time to time. In terms of temperature, in terms temperature rise, in terms of sea level rise, all the impacts of climate change. Your question was, is the adaptation adequate? Certainly not. In fact, until 2015, the Paris Agreement, adaptation was not so much a part of the deliberation. There were attempts at addressing the challenges. It is only since 2015 that at least the share of the money that should go to fighting climate change and impacts of climate change, there
Why
is
is
a
this
50.
happening, sir? I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is this lack of sensitivity on part of the governments and the stakeholders, or is it something more, or a complex web of issues that are going behind? People dragging their feet, the policymakers dragging their feet over an issue which is as serious as this, way, which obviously puts into question the very existence of human beings. Is being overlooked in manners which hardly for which there is hardly any explanation as to why this is happening. So essentially, I just want to know what exactly is going on in the backdrop as to why the response is not up to the mark to which it should have been. Bengal in the last 3 or 4 years have had experiences of cyclones from which it has not been able to recover from yet. It started with Ayla, I mean, as the recent example, and then it went all the way up to Yas a few months back, and each and every one of these cyclones have devastated the land areas, on which it has gone through. Yet there is no long-term planning as to why is this happening, sir.
See, neither climate change nor the negotiations on climate change are happening in isolation. We have to keep the global context in mind, and who sets the agenda? It's the historical polluters who've been setting the agenda, and they continue to set the agenda. And the rest of the world is kind of responding to that agenda. It is only now where we are, like Prime Minister Modi is forcefully saying that while we talk about mitigation, we also need to talk about the money being committed. Where's that money? If there are questions being raised about where is climate action, it is also time to ask the question, where is the money, right? So the agenda setting is such that the historical emitters, and they are financially better off in terms of the demographics, they're better off. I mean, look at our population, look at the section of the population that is vulnerable in South Asia, in Southeast Asia, as compared to, say, Western Europe, as compared to the United States. Yes, these places are also witnessing, but again, the local dynamics are playing out. Louisiana versus the state of New York, it's not the same thing, right? Kolkata, Mumbai, New York, Shanghai, all of these cities that are very large in size are economic engines of those regions.
Mhm.
Despite the fact that the sea level is rising, the temperature is rising, all efforts would be made to see to it that these cities continue to operate. Jakarta is one example which Professor Hazra mentioned, that it would be relocated, right? But do you expect New York to be relocated? Do you expect Mumbai to be relocated? No. But if you look at the Sundarbans and the city of Kolkata, the intervening space between Sundarbans and Kolkata has more population than Kolkata itself.
True.
Would we be making the same amount of adjustments, investments in that region as opposed to the kind of investment and intervention that we would make in Kolkata? So these are the realities within which we have to operate. Yes, sir.
Yes,
I just have a
Professor
point
Hajra,
to
you,
make
you 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 wanted to say something.
here, because in terms of decision making and prioritization, look, the scientific community is advising the government and the people and the society as well. But have you seen any political party or politicians taking up the agenda of environment in the fighting the contesting election,
Exactly my point.
or the Chennai ruling or the opposition? They are fighting for, say, who is going
So
to make
why
the
why
city
is climate
flood
change and
proof,
the impact of climate change on
or
the
for
people, on the
Calcutta,
voters?
or
Why is that
yeah.
an afterthought? Is what I want to know.
No, but have you talked to the voter? Are they concerned about climate change
Right.
or sea level rise or cyclones coming? Because this is the media, the education, the discussion in the coffee houses and public spheres. These are not concerned with climate change or any crisis of civilization. They are just how to make merry of this life, this moment, or whatever. Uh,
So it's the
but
short-sightedness you're saying.
well, there are lots, far-sighted views in religion, politics, and everywhere.
True.
But
True.
unfortunately, we are not able to see the reality at our doorstep. the sea is coming or the rains are increasing, but we will continue to build on the wetland because
Yes.
none of the policymakers in the city will be able to take a conscious decision that look, if we have to expand the city, these are the areas which are not vulnerable. You are not filling up the wetland, which are the way that our city should be drained out. Because if you fill it, the water will be locked. What has happened to the Chennai wetland? What is happening to my East Kolkata wetland? So you see that in spite of the fact that COVID has happened, people are not using any protection against COVID still at the time of say third wave or something. They are talking about third wave. That is no, this will be milder or it will be stronger, something like that. But it is not sunk in to the existence. We are unable to open the university still, but we are yet still debating. So
Right.
you see the reality and then discuss whether these will be drowned within 2030 or 2050, because Climate Central has done nothing great, but what they have done is very important, that we are assessing our global altitude data, I mean the topography, with SRTM, the Subtle Radar Topographic Vision, remote sensing satellite. Okay, and we had a 16-meter accuracy level in the vertical plane.
Wow.
But this has been corrected in 2016 by Climate Central. Now we have a very, 5.16 meter range and accuracy. We have deleted but they have deleted the tree height and the building height from the cities and other things. Then we are suddenly discovering that, okay, look, our 31% of our global coastal plain is underwater if this sea level rise, say, by 1 meter. The point is
Correct.
that whether it is 2030 or 2050, it will depend upon that accuracy of the measurement. But what we are observing from the coast, this is not any mathematical calculation. I was telling that I had to fight 20 years to prove that the sea level rise is highest in Diamond Harbour or in Sundarban. That was accepted in Parliament in 2019. And before that, I was fighting with everybody, and scientists and non-scientists, that look, sea level are not rising, or even the sea level are falling. People have published papers on that. Okay, so this is the reality. And now the people are getting concerned. Okay, sea level is rising. It is highest in Diamond Harbour. The rate is 5 point something. But I know that the last 5 years, the rate of sea level is 3.5 millimeter per year. But the last 10 years, it was 12 millimeter per year. So it is variable in space and time. So you have to know science, you have to apply science in society, and you have to adapt science in public sphere and politics. So without that, you will be doing business and business as usual. You are not going to reduce emission. You are not going to cut down any habit or any kind of way of living by making huge profit only and not distributing that profit. Because you cannot do business at the expense of environment, because the environment is not there, your business will be not there. So I don't understand this total psyche of this civilization, which is leading to climate change, I must say.
Dr. Danda, since you are, closely associated with groups like the ORF and WWF, and you've been, a part of these various studies, I'm sure, partaking in some of them, I'm sure, draw attention to the people concerned on the real situation, on the danger on the ground that we face at this point in time. Have you had opportunities to interact with government bodies, both at the state level or at the central level? And have you had any exposure to the kind of mindsets that the powers that be in this country take a view of a situation like this? Is it encouraging in any manner? What needs to be done next?
See, yes, I have had occasions of where I have interacted with people who, make these policies or try to arrive at decisions. When the state action plan on climate change were being drawn up, I interacted at, in several states, and these were good documents that were brought out, essentially prepared with the help of the scientific community. But somehow the communication between the scientists and those who make decisions, scientists don't make decisions. This communication isn't happening. I'll give you an instance where the Uttarakhand State Action Plan was released, and all the line departmental heads were there, and the chief engineer from the irrigation department was there, and he said, "Okay, tell me, what am I supposed to do? I can't make head or tail out of this document." And the second question he had, where is the money? Okay.
Right.
So first tell me, what do I need to do? And to do what I have to do, where is the money? Right. We've had a very good document even for West Bengal, which has been revised. West Bengal is also a document which has taken a geographical approach besides the thematic approaches following the National Action Plan on Climate Change. So we have one for our hilly regions, and we have one thematic area for our Sundarbans region. Now, again, we've had the Sundarbans Development Board since donkey's years now. Is the Sundarbans Development Board acting any differently than it was in the absence of knowledge of climate change? The answer is no. Is the irrigation department acting any differently? No. Is the the district administration of 24 Parganas behaving any differently? Unfortunately, no. Now, do we not know what is required? Of course, we know what is required. Professor Hazra just mentioned about water bodies in urban areas. We are gleefully filling up water bodies as if they don't matter. They do matter. I mean, the flood situation that is expected in 2030, 2050, or whatever that may date be, it is not that Calcutta will become Atlantis. It's not going to be underwater.
Not
It is
now,
going to be
maybe, but
no. It's going to be flooded probably once every year to that extent by 2030, right? So it's not going to be a below water city kind of a thing, right? So, and during high tide, as Professor Hazra was explaining, during high tide there is no place for that water to drain out, right? That means you have to hold that water back within that geography.
right.
Therefore, you would need the water bodies. But we've been gleefully filling those up, right? And the same thing we are doing also in rural areas like the Sundarbans, where again we know exactly what needs to happen, right? Yet, the message that we are conveying to the residents of the Sundarbans is that we will make it like the city of Kolkata. To the residents of Kolkata, we are saying we will make it like London. Right? So we are portraying these aspirational images which are into the future. But what needs to happen right now, you were talking about 4.5-degree temperature rise at the end of the century. All the people who work outdoors, do you think they can work during the daytime if that's the kind of temperature, average temperature rise we're looking at? No. That means the work timings need to change, or the skill set has to be such that very few or none need to work outdoors.
And
Bodily
that's the
work.
kind of planning, that's the kind of understanding the gravity of the situation, the planning that needs to go into it, and the right political will, perhaps, Dr. Danda, that is so much the need of the hour to bridge that legendary gap between the scientific community who are getting the feel of the ground as to what exactly is happening on the ground, and the policymakers who are there to convert that into palpable action. That gap needs to be bridged, but for that, perhaps the most important thing that's required is the right political will. I think Professor Hajra is trying to make a point, and I'll give him the last word because I need to wrap this discussion up. Professor Hajra, over to you. Whatever you wanted to add.
Yeah, finally, I see this climate change battle of climate change as fight between generations. People who are taking decisions are old like us, and we are not going to survive up to 2030 or 2050. And people who are will be suffering are the young people, and who are not taking decisions, who are not demanding from this older generation of planners and policymakers and politicians that you do something for us, as Greta is trying to do, or other young climate activists are trying to do. But the point is, it is not sensitizing only. It is about collective actions by the young community of this part of, say, Calcutta, Chennai, India, Pakistan, Bangkok, and Indonesia, and Asian countries, that they should force their planners to take cognizance, and they can tell that we are not going to vote for you unless you address this point and show us a charter of demand that you are going to do these things in 5 years. So I think it has to have a political angle from the community. I mean, they should demand. They should know that what they are demanding. They should not only demand concrete and roads and flyovers and everything, fill up everything and do some housing complex for us and I'll vote for you. This approach should change.
The battle of generations, that's a very interesting, perhaps a more pertinent way of looking at the issue that we have at hand. It's a long haul, I'm sure. The younger generation needs to extract that level of commitment from the older planners, is what Professor Hajra is stating. Dr. Anurag Danda has also pointed out towards the gaps that currently persist. And perhaps the need of the hour is the right political will to listen to the voices on the ground, to listen to the scientific findings that are being made in the wake of the very imminent, not just imminent, it's clear and present, it's right here, the climate change impact that we are witnessing at this point in time. It's time, it's actually time to pull up our socks and get the action done on the ground. Not today. It needs to be done yesterday. Is the situation that we are facing right now. Thank you so much, Professor Sugato Hajra. Thank you so much, Dr. Anurag Danda, for joining this discussion.
Thank you.
We hope that in the wake of the developments that take place, we will try and make these discussions more and more frequent, so as to ensure that we are able to reach out to the viewers who are into the digital generation and would take up the matter far more seriously than what they are doing at this point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mupadhyay.